Read all about it. The Great War has ended. The war to end all wars is over. Peace will reign forever. Really? Oh. Shoot. Extra! Extra! World War II begins! War is here! The end is nigh! I feel like we just went through this. Didn't we just come out of war? Previously, we discussed how after coming to power in Germany, Adolf Hitler sought to expand the Third Reich, while Western democracies appeased him in hopes that peace would be guaranteed. Before the war, Hitler and Joseph Stalin signed a 10-year non-aggression pact. Unknown to the rest of Europe, however, was that the two countries had agreed to divide Poland as well. Today we'll examine the first major military moves of World War II. As we find new headlines throughout the war, we'll answer the following guiding questions. How did German and Soviet expansionism contribute to the outbreak of World War II? Why was Germany's defeat of France significant in World War II? What was the impact of the Battle of Britain on the war and British citizens? We'll also explore the big picture question. What role did expansionism and nationalism play at the beginning of World War II? Extra! Hitler and Stalin signed secret pact, both empires on the move! At the beginning of World War II, Hitler and Stalin were playing a game of political chess, both trying to expand their empires as much as possible while avoiding outright conflict. Both totalitarian leaders were engaging in expansionism, a policy aimed at expanding the territorial, economic, or political influence of a country or group of people. In September 1939, Germany launched a surprise attack on Poland, crossing the border with tanks and bombing the capital, Warsaw. This strategy, known as Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, involved the use of fast-moving planes, tanks, and artillery to overwhelm the enemy quickly. France and Britain had recently declared war on Germany, but were unable to respond immediately, allowing Hitler to annex the western half of Poland, which had a large German-speaking population. While Hitler was moving to the west in Poland, as you can see here on the map, Stalin and the Soviets invaded the east, as seen here. Soviet troops occupied the eastern half of Poland and annexed Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia without resistance. A few months later, the Soviets invaded Finland with 1 million troops, expecting a quick victory. However, despite being outnumbered, the Finns were adept at fighting in the winter weather, and the fighting lasted for months before Finland eventually surrendered. As the Germans and Soviets were expanding their territories, Britain and France began preparing for war. British and French troops were stationed along the Maginot Line, which was a series of fortifications along France's border with Germany. While British and French soldiers waited on the Maginot Line, German expansion paused. After several months of this waiting game, some newspapers called the start of World War II the phony war. However, this test of patience ended in April 1940, when Hitler invaded Denmark and Norway, with Denmark surrendering within hours and Norway 2 months later. Pause the video here to answer the question, how did German and Soviet expansionism contribute to the outbreak of World War II? Extra! Extra! France falls to Germany. Can Hitler be stopped? Will the whole world fall? Oh man, let's back up a second. France, a major Western European power, responded to German expansionism by fortifying the Maginot Line, where they expected Germany to attack. Germany wanted to avoid the stalemate over the French border that they had faced during World War I. Rather than attack France head-on, German troops moved through the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, while sending more troops for reinforcements through conquered territory. They circumvented the Maginot Line in just 10 days. This swift move left the French troops surprised and unprepared for the German advance. French troops, surrounded by the German military in the northern French city of Lille, retreated to Dunkirk, a French port city near the Belgian border. The British responded by sending 850 naval ships and volunteer civilian boats across the English Channel to rescue French troops. Over the course of 2 months, the British managed to rescue 338,000 French troops and what became known as the Dunkirk evacuation. Despite this rescue effort, France soon surrendered. German troops overtook Paris, and Germany controlled northern France. Marshal Philippe Pétain, a French leader from World War I, was allowed to lead a puppet government in Vichy in this part of France, while Germany occupied this part of the country. However, Charles de Gaulle, a French general, refused to accept the surrender and organized a government in exile in London. A government in exile is a political group claiming to be a country's legitimate government, but is operating from outside its borders. De Gaulle led the Free French military forces against the Nazis. De Gaulle and the Free French would eventually play a crucial role in the Allied forces' eventual victory in the war. France's defeat gave Germany control of much of Western Europe, including key resources and access to the Atlantic Ocean. It also forced Britain to fight alone against Germany, which put them in a vulnerable position. Pause the video here to answer our second guiding question. Why was Germany's defeat of France significant in World War II? Goodness, these headlines sure are changing quickly. Extra! Britain under bombs! England is our last hope! After France fell in 1940, the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, began bombing British airfields and aircraft factories. They wanted to destroy the Royal Air Force to clear the way for a German invasion of Britain. But Britain had 2 technological advantages over Germany that helped it stave off the Nazi invasion. The first was a radar electronic tracking system that could help pilots determine the number, speed, and direction of incoming warplanes. The second was an Enigma code-making machine that had been smuggled into Britain from Germany in the 1930s. This allowed Britain's military to decode German secret messages and anticipate their moves. Soon after Luftwaffe began bombing military bases, they started systematically bombing the city of London at night. The British people were forced to take refuge in subway tunnels, basements, and air raid shelters. It was a difficult time, but the people showed remarkable resilience in the face of such danger. You may have seen iterations of this famous poster in popular culture today, but the original version was created by the British government during the Battle of Britain to encourage strength in the citizens forced to live through the attacks. Despite being outnumbered, Britain's Royal Air Force fought back in what became known as the Battle of Britain. The Royal Air Force defended Britain against the Luftwaffe by employing a combination of skilled pilots, anti-aircraft technology, and an effective command and control system. The Battle of Britain was a pivotal moment in World War II. Britain's ability to withstand the onslaught of German bombing raids not only prevented a German invasion, but also boosted the morale of the British people. After months of bombings, Hitler called off the attacks to focus his troops on the Mediterranean and Eastern Europe, which we'll explore more in our next lesson. This gave Britain a reprieve from the bombings and allowed them to regroup and to plan their next moves. Pause the video here to address our last guiding question. What was the impact of the Battle of Britain on the war and British citizens? So much for the war to end all wars. From the beginning, the new technology and influential empires in the world made World War II the bigger and badder big brother to World War I. Peace in Europe was shattered, and generations readied themselves to face war once again. Like the press in 1940, make sure you're ready for anything, because history is everywhere.
Hey, hey.